What is up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Destination the Show. This is episode 106 in the National Signing Window. Eric Wagaman and Orlando Arcia edition. My name is Jamie Cameron, joined for the first time in 2026 by Jeremy Nygaard. Happy New Year, buddy.
Yeah, thanks. You too. And then what's happier than an episode that talks about Eric Wagaman and Orlando Arcia?
We were like joking before we just got started that this might be, and this is probably not the best way to start off a podcast, but this might be like the least exciting series of topics, just in terms of like we are really in the depth of the off season. There's very little going on the major league side of the organization, and like arguably this has been a busy week by the Twins standards this off season. We have been saved, however, by the international signing window, so there's a little bit to talk about there. And then as always, Jeremy, listeners came through with questions, so we have fun minor league questions, hypotheticals, and other topics to dig into, which I'm excited for. How was your holiday period? Are you guys like a pro Christmas, like be super extra with decorations and like Christmas lights and all that type of stuff type of family, or where do you sit on that continuum?
So we are pro Christmas.
I guess I did be like as if like pro or anti-Christmas. Are you anti-Christmas? Yeah.
So we have my wife likes to decorate.
Okay.
I don't hang lights. I draw the line on the lights.
You're not a ladder guy.
No. But I will climb up on my roof and clear the solar panels of snow. So wow. I didn't this year though. That was dangerous. I fell from the higher roof to the lower roof once, and I'm like, you know what? For a few extra bucks, this is not worth it. She does decorate nice outside. She did buy a nice. I also draw the line on real trees because apparently I'm lame. But we do have she bought a nice tree that has the lights like built into it. So that's upstairs. We got another tree down here, and so yeah, we are pro Christmas. Didn't really travel, so that was nice. We hosted her family, and then we went all 5 miles down the road to my family on Christmas Day, and so then it was just like chill and watch way too much, probably Netflix, Paramount, Peacock, football. Yeah, so we didn't really do much, but it was nice, and I got a snow day yesterday, so the second day I've worked since before Christmas. So
wait, you got a snow day yesterday?
Yeah, treacherous travel. Like my kids were off and I was off. I ended up driving to Bloomington for my daughter, but it was pretty bad. It started as a 2-hour delay and then turned into an ice day. So that's enough about me. How about you?
And great break, with the exception of flu passing through the household right at the end of it, which is just prime annoying. But what are you gonna do? Yeah, similar deal. Super relaxing. Family time. We did not host, which was great, enjoyable. We are also pro Christmas.
There we go.
Stranger Things season 5 was on the agenda.
Okay, so tell me about how you felt about the whole season 5.
I thought season 5 as a whole was easily the worst of the 4.
Okay, that's a fair statement. Theo's going to chime in.
I did, however, enjoy the final episode generally. I thought it was solid. Mm-hmm. I thought the epilogue post final battle especially was like really solid. I always think they do like the like emotional tie down to the characters type stuff really, really well. And I thought they concluded the characters well. I got plenty of quibbles with like the first part of the finale, but overall, like the finale, did not really care for season 5. Still overall seminal TV show. Really enjoyed it over the course of its lifespan.
All right, Theo, pop in and tell us.
First 2 seasons of the show were great, but this was really bad. So I don't know if you guys heard the rumors over the years, but the Duffer Brothers allegedly had multiple people accuse them that they stole the idea of the show from them, and all this was settled out of court. This was
the one I read about like there was no proof of anything, and they dropped
Yeah.
it. So that's different than you settle out of court. The guy dropped the lawsuit.
There was another one like that, but anyway, it was never more clear to me that these guys more than likely did steal the scripts from someone else because they could not write to save their lives. Like they had to fit too many characters in too many scenes. The lighting was bad. I thought the series finale looked like it was back in a music video from Linkin Park in 2000.
You've been on Twitter too much, Theo.
No, dude, this is really bad television. I'm not saying this because I've been on Twitter too much, and like there was just some bad acting in there from some of the child actors. Yeah, and like you just push Winona Ryder to the side. You have Winona Ryder, and you just barely use her, and you like people are.
She did like the most important thing in the whole series. Without spoiling anything.
I mean, yeah, they just were like, oh yeah, we need her to do something in the finale, and that's what it seemed like. But like, and then like they have all these other things, and they're just like, oh, we forgot. Oh well, and it's like, no. I mean, first 2 seasons were great, but it overstayed its welcome, and it should have just been 2 seasons and left it at that.
Okay.
Theo is a TV snob. Got it.
Yes, I just appreciate good writing, and that was not good writing.
I watched Begonia.
You watch what now?
Begonia.
Oh yes, that's a good one.
No, it's not. It's awful. It's the worst book in the history of the world.
It felt like a
no.
Great acting. The story was awful. The story was ridiculous. The story was stupid. Don't do it, Jamie. No matter what.
You know what? You know what I'm doing? This will be my final 2 cents on TV before we talk baseball. The Pit season 2 comes out tomorrow. HBO. If you haven't seen it, are you familiar with The Pit, Jeremy?
Nope. Don't have HBO.
The Pit is outstanding. It's about an ER in Pittsburgh, hence The Pit. Noah Wiley, formerly of ER fame, but this is much more like serious, tense, like hospital drama. It's really good.
Before we start about baseball, we should also mention that when you and I text, it's rarely now about baseball.
That's true,
and it's almost exclusively about women's volleyball.
It is about college volleyball. We backed into, which is not surprising because we do like mostly all of the same things. And we just kind of like backed into a weird friendship around liking almost all of the same things. But one of those things is college volleyball and the trials and tribulations of the transfer portal and Wisconsin's roster going into 2026. So we're missing it. We want it back. It's if you haven't watched women's college volleyball, either live or on TV, I think both ways to consume it are great. I think it's the most underrated watch of any sport, period. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's like if you sometimes you see like studies where it's like if you hit the stopwatch whenever there's actual action, right? So in baseball, it'd be like the pitch,
totally
pitcher to catcher or pitcher to hit to field. Or football, it's like start to play, end to play. Like those, the actual action in those games is it's pretty minimal, right? Basketball, there's more because it's constantly going, and that's the thing. Like with volleyball, it never really stops, and when it does, it's very brief, and then it's just keeps going. And I mean, college softball is kind of similar. Like it's a fast paced sport. When baseball is really not so fast paced. So it's fun. And when you like a team that is competitive, it's really fun. But then, the transfer portal opens and boom, they all go.
Brutal, dude. Brutal. I'll call out one more as your best value entertainment in the Twin Cities. If you have nothing to do weekends of the winter, Minnesota Gophers women's gymnastics meet is the best, like $8 to $9 you can spend. And I'm biased because I have a gymnastics kid, but they have an absolutely stacked schedule this season. Jordan Charles is coming to the pavilion. So if you want to see Olympians, they have one coming this Saturday in Jocelyn Roberson, and then UCLA coming to town later in the winter. So
that's where you're spending your Saturday?
It is. It absolutely is.
I'm coaching basketball in the Dells, 5th grade boys. So
you're going to have a more smelly experience than I am, clearly.
We're going to leave Friday, and we're going to hit up a water park. And it's going to be fantastic.
Okay. That sounds nice. All right, let's get into it, man. Ways that people can support the show. This is our first episode in a couple of weeks because we've been taking a nice extended pro-Christmas break. You can like and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform of choice. You can find all of our stuff on YouTube. The handle there is at Destination the Show. If you want to send us questions, and we're basically doing a mailbag. So thank you so much for turning Eric Wagaman and Orlando Arcia into something interesting, guys, today. You can do so on Twitter at DTS_pod1 is a handle there. On Blue Sky at Destination the Show, or send us an email, destinationtheshow@gmail.com. Let's knock out the news, the boring news, quickly. The Twins traded for a right-handed hitter, I suppose, acquiring Eric Wagaman from the Miami Marlins in exchange for Cade Bragg, left-handed pitcher. We'll talk about Bragg in a second. DFAing Ryan Fitzgerald in the process. Wagaman played 140 games at the MLB level for Miami last year. He hit 250, 296, 378 with 9 home runs. Walked 6% of the time, struck out 19% of the time. Significantly better numbers in the second half. He's better against left-handed pitching. Jeremy, your reaction to Wagaman, if you have any strong, I can't imagine you have strong feelings or opinions, but what do you think of this acquisition by the Twins?
Well, you see, I got the email and I opened it and I said, who? And then I read it and I was like, who? And then I saw Cade Bragg and I was like, ah. And then I got into it. I opened my phone to our conversation and I said, Wagaman ? And like, what? I don't really get what the point of this one was. So if you could explain that to me, I would appreciate it.
Okay, let's talk about Cade Bragg quickly, and then we can talk about roster fit type stuff after that. So Cade Bragg, you won't find him on many Twins top 20, top 30 lists, but I do think he is an interesting prospect. We've talked about him and enjoyed him quite a bit on this podcast. He was a 2023 draftee, 17th round out of Angelo State. I love that type of thing. He got all the way up to AA, split time between high and AA last year. In fact, started out low A last year, got all the way up to AA. Over his minor league career, he's 23 years old, 67 innings pitched so far with the Twins, a 2.94 ERA, 3.73 FIP. Really, really healthy strikeout numbers, striking out 30.1% of batters. That's 10.96 per 9. The walks are too high. It's 11.4% or 4.14 per 9. But I'm going to lay this down now, Jeremy. I had highlighted Cade Bragg as a dark horse sleeper outsider bullpen candidate for the back end of 2026. And I think you and I have both kind of silently agreed that he has a decent shot of being an MLB arm in some capacity. So what do you think of, do you agree with that assessment, I guess? And then what do you think of giving him up for a platoon bat?
Yeah, I guess in my mind, he is at some point, whether that's later this year or 2027, he will pitch in the major leagues. Probably would be more optimistic about his major league career under the previous rules, right? Where you didn't have to face 3 batters. But yeah, I mean, we like that draft pick as a kind of an under the radar one. He debuted and was good enough. And it's someone that we've always talked about and kind of had on the periphery of not necessarily a top 20 list, but, a top, I don't know, 65, 70. Like he's going to be a major league arm. And, it's probably not going to be of such high quality that we're like, man, that could have been the closer.
Totally.
Right. But he's going to pitch maybe for the Marlins, maybe for someone else. And kind of like, is it Nick Anderson? Was he the guy that was like, yeah, you view him as a major league arm and he's going to do some good things. And it just seems kind of silly, not really a 40-man crunch where it's like, okay, we got to make room for him. I would just be curious how this conversation started. Do the Twins call? Do the Marlins call? Is this like an ongoing conversation where who each other like? Because the fit for me from the Twins perspective is one that's interesting.
So this is a waiver wire jump, right? So we should. So Corey asked a question kind of tangential to this, but I think we can slide it in here and have some quick discussion about this. He said, I felt like a lot of the moves or non-moves, as he describes this offseason for the lineup have been around leaving space for Culpepper, Jenkins, and Rodriguez to be able to debut when they're ready. My question is, Larnach is probably traded before the spring. What does Wallner have to do to hold his spot? Essentially, he then sent another follow-up message and basically was like, how do all of these pieces and guys fit together? Because it feels like there's way too many guys for a particular number of spots on the Twins active roster at the moment. So if we look in the infield, we've got Brooks Lee at short and Ryan Kreidler backing him up. We've got Josh Bell probably at first base, maybe, but is there a world in which Cody Clemens and Eric Wagaman are a platoon duo of first base, and Josh Bell is more of a DH? You've got Luke Keeschel, the Luke Keeschel variable of like, is he a second baseman or is he going to be a right-handed bat in the outfield? I think that potentially shifts things around a lot.
He could be both, though, right? I mean,
could be both.
And Cody Clemens isn't. I think we're used to him playing first base. He's played a decent amount of second base in his career, right? Or am I just imagining that?
He's played second and he's played a little bit of third, but at the same time, my wondering there, Jeremy, is like, who's backing up Royce Lewis? I do not want Eric Wagaman backing up Royce Lewis. Royce Lewis struggles to stay on the field. There's not really a solid backup at third. If we go down the like, Luke Keeschel is going to start transitioning to the outfield rabbit hole, then we have a really interesting conversation because we've got Byron Buxton, right-handed, along with Keeschel. Then you've got Larnach, lefty, Austin Martin, righty, James Outman, lefty, Alan Roden, lefty, and Matt Wallner, lefty, all on the Major League roster. There's no way you're going into spring with all of those guys still on the team. So maybe the question becomes like, what is your kind of confidence interval, or like stack some of those guys in terms of likelihood to get moved or traded? Because one of them has to be, right? Like, you don't acquire Alan Roden midseason, who's better defensively and is a better athlete than Larnach, to not use him.
Right.
Who's going from this picture? To me, it's Larnach, pardon me, based on the salary, and just maybe there's a team who still sees some marginal value in the bat. But I'm wondering kind of who jumps out as you as like the most likely to be moved.
Well, I think Larnach for sure. I think there's been talk of like, is Altman guaranteed a spot? And in my mind, it's like, you're not going to trade Brock Stewart for someone that you're then just going to cut right away. But then I look at Austin Martin and I'm like, okay, so are Martin and Outman, is there some redundancy there? Is Austin Martin potentially someone that could play a little in the infield? Like, he played a lot of third base, right? He doesn't really have that bat, but are they going to look at him as like a Willie Castro type that's just not as good defensively? I don't have the answers to that because Fitzgerald is gone, and we'll talk about maybe what the second option is at shortstop later. But does he fit in other places too? I think, and I don't know, like, is Derek Shelton gonna not look at versatility as much as Rocco did? I think there's just a lot of questions that we're looking at a real incomplete picture to try to come up with an answer.
Definitely a lot of questions. And I think the other argument you could easily make is Wagaman is like the floor setter of like, when you got Kyle Farmer and he was like okay, we have someone who can play shortstop. Then they went on and signed Carlos Correa to that extremely surprising deal later in the summer. So maybe Wagaman is the like, okay, we've got someone, a placeholder, if you will. We're still looking to upgrade there because, as you say, and like, maybe we could probably do a whole episode on this, Jeremy, of like, let's throw a diamond graphic up there and like look at the depth chart and actually talk through who makes the most sense. Right. Any way you arrange it, the defense is going to be hideous, dude. Like, either some combination of both the infield and the outfield defense, the infield defense in particular, outfield a little better because you got Buxton and Wallner has a big arm and Austin Martin potentially has some range and Roden's fine. But the defense, I feel like it's going to be bad.
I would
So
agree.
I don't know. It feels concerning.
So you still haven't answered my question.
What was your original question?
Aside from like, okay, we've now set the floor that Eric Wagaman can be a warm body. Like,
Yeah.
What's the point? Is it to platoon at first base potentially with Clemens?
That feels like the most logical thing, but that relies on Josh Bell leaning into DH more, which would be better because he's so bad defensively at first base that he's going to lose most of his offensive value if he's playing there. So I think the thing that makes most sense in terms of just like accruing value is Bell as a DH. You've got Clemens and Wagaman as your platoon, and you're literally switching those guys off at first base. Then you've got, let's say, Keishel placeholder at second at the moment, Royce Lewis at third, and Brooks Lee at shortstop. That's just such a bad infield defensively, but that makes the most sense in terms of like maximizing the offensive value. I think pending further additions. Okay, we should also touch on, I suppose, another signing. Twins signed Orlando Arcia to a minor league deal. Do we want to talk about Orlando Arcia's?
Well, he's in the title, so I think
okay. Twins signed Orlando Arcia, younger brother of Oswaldo Arcia, to a minor league deal. He's spent the last few years primarily in Atlanta, also played for the Rockies a little bit in 2025. We should also note, Jeremy, that like where the Twins are acquiring these players from, their last organization should not fill you with confidence. Eric Wagaman was in Miami. Orlando Arcia was in Colorado. Ryan Kreidler was in Pittsburgh. We're really like scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of
bad players for bad teams.
Yeah,
let's add him to the major league roster.
That's not great. Okay, in 2025, Arcia as a 30-year-old, 202, 238, 291, a negative 0.9 F-WAR in just 76 games. He walked 4.7% of the time, struck out 22% of the time, didn't run very well. Defensive metrics were down. I mean, this is just backup shortstop territory, and so it feels like it's him or Kreidler, potentially for that backup to Brooks Lee role until we see Kalen Culpepper on the scene, to Corey's point, and maybe the battle is like who has a better spring. I don't know. Can you see anything more for Arcia? And like, there's no bad minor league deal, so who cares? But it's not one that fills you with confidence that he can contribute.
Right, and I think the reality is if it's June 1st and Brooks Lee is struggling and Kalen Culpepper is surviving, then you promote Kalen Culpepper. If they're both struggling, that becomes harder. Or if it's earlier in the year and Culpepper hasn't really got going yet and Lee has back issues, like now at least you have an option, right? And it's not a great option, but it's better than like, oh shoot, is Andrelton Simmons, like, is he available? Right. Yeah. And so I do think that it's like you said, setting the floor for what could possibly be a problem. And I would say Arcia would at least be a serviceable glove in the 9-hole for a short term if it was absolutely necessary. There's just not a lot of expectations that come with that as far as like being on a really good team.
Absolutely. Grim, dude. Grim. Okay, let's talk a little bit about international signing window. That is opening on January 15th. We'll touch on one Twins prospect who's expected to sign with the team. Their class is going to be headlined by Emmanuel Merlot. He's a 17-year-old Venezuelan shortstop prospect, switch hitter, slated to receive the 29th largest bonus of any international prospect. That's per Baseball America. I believe from poking around a little bit, his bonus is expected to be $1.5 million. Just to ground people in some context, the Twins' overall pool is about $7.3 million to spend. Pipeline ranked him as their 34th best prospect. Listed at 6'1", 190, just turned 17 in November. Seems to have above average power relatively for his age, good approach. Who knows about defensive positioning, but he certainly seems to have a good arm. I'm not going to ask you about Merlot, Jeremy, because your stock answer on any international guy is let me know when he makes it to the complex and we'll see how he does there.
Yep.
I do want to ask you about something else, which is that there seems to be a little bit of a departure here from the Twins from the strategy that they've employed in the international market the past few years. I think what we've seen typically the last couple of years from the new regime is 2 to 3 guys ranked in the kind of top 50 bonuses and top 50 prospects that they've signed for between $1 and $2 million. Now we should acknowledge that like a lot of these deals are agreed to 3, 4, 5 years ago. So it doesn't necessarily reflect it, Kevin Goldstein and Roman Barinas and their work. But this year they only have one guy with the top 50 bonus. It sounds like there's maybe 4, 5, 6 guys who have bonuses of around $500,000. And so I don't know whether that's just reflective of like how the market played out for them, whether it's any type of change in strategy, but it is interesting that they seem to be, at least for this year, signing less guys to higher bonuses and kind of spreading the money out a little bit more. Because it's fair to say in recent years, we have not seen a lot of traction with the exception of Emmanuel Rodriguez and any of their guys, which I think really stings for people when you look next door and you see the Brewers bringing up elite prospect after elite prospect from Venezuela and from the Caribbean. So any thoughts on whether you think that might be a kind of change of strategy or just randomness at play?
Well, I mean, there's been a distinct pattern to what you said. We'll spend more money on higher guys and then throw, $40,000 at a whole bunch of dudes. And it might be as simple as just not liking the top of that group for whatever reason, whether that's inavailability because they're signing with other people or just not finding them. And I think it's the Twins are very much data driven. Mm-hmm. And what kind of data, the more you lean into that, what kind of data are you getting on 16-year-olds, but 16-year-olds 3 years ago? And so it's possible that maybe there were guys that they had really targeted a handful of years ago that just didn't develop the way that they wanted to, and they cut their losses. But I'd be curious to see, because we saw a handful of years ago how the Twins were way more active in Europe, right? Mm-hmm. And then that kind of went away. The Twins used to be very, very active in Australia, and we haven't seen as much of that lately. And so I think a lot of things move in cycles. As you get away from certain things as an organization, it's possible that there's just not as many feet on the ground in those countries.
Yep.
And I think the other thing that is always you have to be cognizant of is the Twins are the one of two teams that haven't gone into the tax on their draft bonus pools. Like, do they spend all their international signing pool? Like, is this just something that they didn't like it and they're just you can trade this money? Like, is it more valuable to somebody else than maybe it is for them if they're not sending big money out? So I think there's a lot of potential factors and none of which we really can get a great sense on. Plus, these are guys that are 7 years probably away from even competing for a major league job.
Yeah, 100%. We need to get Kevin Goldstein on this podcast, dude. That's my number one guest request in 2026. Something else just to monitor around the international market that I think is interesting. We'll continue to update with additional guys as they sign. Last year, the Twins benefited from the fallout of the Roki Sasaki sweepstakes, in that the Dodgers essentially used all of their international bonus money on him, had to cancel some of their other agreements. The Twins managed to poach a couple of prospects from the Dodgers, including Tylon Serrano, who had a really, really good DSL campaign in his first year. Of note, Yankees GM Brian Cashman ordered the cancellation of all of the organization's international pre-agreements after some major drama. Their international scouting director was fired. Their big prospect flipped from the Yankees to the Mets. I forget his name. Yandy Asijan, I want to say.
I knew nothing about this.
Yeah. Recent. I think a day or two ago, this came up. So there's going to be, if that's kind of confirmed and comes to fruition, there's going to be organizations all over trying to poach prospects and work on picking up some of the Yankees prospects if that in fact does come to pass. And that's the situation where you want to be able to be flexible with your cash and have money to spend, and we'll pay close attention to it. Okay, let's dig in some questions. We'll start with one on the international signing window that we'll get your take on first, Jeremy, from Raphael. He says, any thoughts for or against an international prospect draft? I've always thought that this is something that would be fun. Are you pro or anti international draft with a new CBA coming up in the next couple of years here?
I may be more pro international draft than I am pro Christmas. And part of that is because I'm a fan of all drafts, and I follow the international signing period, but it's like it's a wave of information that just happens at once. And now with Twitter changing my timeline from chronological to whatever they want, I don't really know what's new and what's not new, and I'm not gonna it's great to be watching a Timberwolves game and then getting yesterday's tweets about the Timberwolves game in the middle of today's game, right? And so that's like with the signing period or the way it is now, things just kind of roll out from team to team all at once. But I would love to see a draft with pools, make them tradable, and maybe that's how they work in trading draft picks. Is they try it with international. But for me, I think it's got to be a hard capped deal, like where each draft slot is hard capped. And I think the part that makes it really difficult is you got to do work on these kids because they might be 19, right? And so that makes it a little bit harder because you're able to, hey, we would like to sign you, but now we're going to work through this. And with the draft, it's like you have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Pick a guy, and then you get him there, and you're like, wait a second, you're not 15, you're 37.
Yep.
And now we've lost. You're locked in at this amount, but it's not worth. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that could go wrong with it. But from the very basic level, yes, I'm pro draft. I know that it would be really difficult to pull off.
For sure. I don't know that it's something that will be agreed to. I'm down to entertain the idea. I have a few conditions that I would be interested in them meeting in order to agree to that. One would be how player labor friendly is the draft process, and does that change some of the financial windfalls that these players can receive? That's something I would want to think carefully about. I would also add, there has to be a way, or it could be a benefit if there's a way to prevent some of the outrageousness that goes on in the international market now. Now in the international market, we see teams recruiting and agreeing to pay 12-year-olds multi-million-dollar pre-contract agreements. I think that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about these are children, literally children. There's
Right.
something very icky and weird about that to me. And so if there's a system that could be put in place that countermanded that in some way, I think could be beneficial. But I mean, there's also a kind of whole set of systems and structures that have been built out in the Caribbean and in Latin countries that rely on this and thrive on this. So I don't know how easy it would be to dismantle, to your point. I think it would be pretty tricky.
Yes.
Okay, here's a fun question for you, Jeremy, from Internet Gnome. He says, or she or they, I don't know. Who is your prediction for the next Anthony Slamma or Carson McCusker type player for the Twins? Someone the fan base falls in love with that the team just does not want to give opportunities to in 2026. I have my answer primed if you need a little thinking time on this one.
Okay, well, I was doing a little research on this one. Peyton Neals would have been the obvious answer.
Yeah, there you go, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
Without any doubt. I feel like Kyler Fedko's an easy answer because he's going to put up big numbers, and it's going to be like, why doesn't he get a chance? Why doesn't he get a chance?
Yeah.
But then you got to really go into the lower levels, and the guy that I think is going to, and it might not be 2026, but I do think Kyle DeBarge is going to be kind of have like a cult following because he's smaller in stature, but also steals a ton of bases. So there's just going to be some loud statistics. I do view, and Anthony Slamma was a cult hero when the target field opened, right? So we're talking like 15 years, and then we jumped ahead to Carson McCusker in 2025.
Yep.
So there's been a lot of other types of players that fit in that category over time.
Williams Astudillo.
Totally.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He got a chance, though. He got playing time.
Yeah, and I feel like DeBarge might, depending on the state of this team and what they need, especially in the target field era, this team has never really prioritized stolen base players and those guys who can really get a high amount of steals. I think for me, and maybe I'm a little off with this one, it might be Ricardo Olivar, just because he's, one of the better hitting catchers, even if he's not the strongest defender. He should get an opportunity. But if you have Jackson, Johnny Pereda, and Mickey Gasper behind Ryan Jeffers, as the guys you're rotating in and out, you're kind of just blocking a young guy who, what's the harm in him having an opportunity? But if you're not going to add him to the 40-man in back-to-back seasons, if he's Rule 5 eligible, and obviously that didn't come back to bite them, I think he's kind of someone who fits in that mold.
I have a short-term answer for you guys and a longer-term 2026 answer. The short-term answer is whatever week Aaron Sabato hits 4 home runs in a week, it's going to be him for sure. Because you know what the casuals are going to say. And I know that sounds snarky, but people are going to say, a 2020 first rounder, like, give him a shot. He's never had a shot. Like, the Twins need power, man. I mean, he did it this year where I think he hit like 8 home runs in a month or something. He was just tearing it up.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, maybe he has turned a corner. No, he didn't. And then my sneaky darker horse one, maybe, who I think, and this taps into like, do the team believe in him, is Kalai Rosario. Because good power threat, legit think he could hit like 20, 25 home runs as a major leaguer, but he's going to be low batting average guy. He has very little defensive value. Like, he's a little bit of a butcher in a corner outfield spot, which is already not super valuable defensively. And so I just see him kind of potentially following that like McCusker-esque path of like, is Kalai Rosario going to displace like Emmanuel Rodriguez or Walker Jenkins or Matt Wallner or, someone of that ilk from the major league roster? That feels unlikely. Those would be my two.
Do you have any pitchers that come to mind? Because for me, like the Corey Lewis knuckleball,
that's
like
a good one.
There's kind of a I wouldn't say a following, but there's definitely knowledge of that.
Totally.
Wasn't great last year, and it's like if he turns around, he should get an opportunity. But that to me is like pitcher wise the one that I can think of, unless I'm missing someone that like throws 103 and
Hunter Hoops. It's got to be Hunter Hoops, who finished at AA and was like recruited out of like a pitching like facility. It's like look up his like viral video. I want to say he was based out of Alabama back in the day. There's that connection again. But they had like a velo off at the pitching facility, and he threw like 102, and then the Twins signed him. And if you look at his numbers in the lower levels of the minors, I think he was working exclusively in relief last year. He was just dominant. And then I think he struggled a bit. I think he may have finished the season at AA, where he struggled quite a bit more. But stuff-wise, velocity-wise, he's super live arm. And I love the Twins trend of just like picking up guys who were not drafted and turning them into some type of value, a.k.a. Peyton Neals, John Klein, Carson McCusker, potentially Hoops. Like that's fun.
Do you remember a name? And I had to find the time. We're talking oh shoot, I don't even know, 2014-ish. Do you remember the name Brandon Polson?
2014 is too long ago, dude.
So Brandon Polson he was not a baseball player. He worked for his dad's excavating business as a truck driver.
Okay.
Started playing in a Sunday night league, and then ended up pitching at the Academy of Arts University's baseball team.
That doesn't sound like a real place, but go on.
And he gets in front of some scouts and starts hitting triple digits. And the Twins sign him. So Elliot Strankman was a scout, I believe the West Coast scouting supervisor now, was an area scout. They gave him $250,000.
That's wild.
Because he was throwing, I think 103. Like I had at the time had grainy like cell phone video of him throwing, and pitched. I'm just reading this. Pitched Elizabethton, 2015. Got to GCL, struck out 26 batters and 20 and a third.
How many walks?
That doesn't show on his Wikipedia page, but they ended up getting rid of him in the next year, and he ended up signing in the Atlantic League. But yeah, I mean that it's stuff like that where those are fun stories, like with Hoops, like that. Those types of guys, like you get that following. Who is the guy? Lefty? Is it Boozer?
The Red Sox who pitched for the Red Sox this year?
Yeah, what's his name?
Cam Boozer?
Yeah,
Boozer. He was a former Twin, right? Former Twin farmhand?
I believe so. Yep.
Like and talking to some of the minor league guys, of course Cameron Boozer is just a Duke stud basketball player. But like how his slider was just unhittable, and he like just never moved up. Always someone that I watched, tried to follow, and then ends up making his debut a handful of years later, and was a serviceable dude. So just stuff like that is always, like you said, it's always interesting.
Dude, I have Brandon Paulson's walk numbers, and they're everything you hope they might be. Academy, I pulled up his baseball reference page. Academy of Art is just listed as 19.1 innings pitched, 24 walks. Elizabethton 7.1 innings, 13 walks. Gulf Coast League 20.1 innings, 19 walks, and then Joliet in the Frontier League 5 innings pitched, 15 walks, baby.
Yep. Yeah, so Cam Boozer signed as an undrafted free agent by the Twins in August of 2013. Had surgery in 2015 to correct a labrum tear, and then was kind of like out of baseball, was suspended. And it says he retired in November of 2017, returned to Seattle area to work as a carpenter. Missing baseball, he began to give pitching lessons in 2020 and found that he could still throw 96, right?
Oh, awesome.
Boom. He's back in the major leagues. Like that, those types of stories are super fun. And so
oh yeah, I remember his story about getting suspended for marijuana use back in the minors. Now it doesn't even matter. So it's all like all of that stuff is just they're fun stories. They're fun to watch, and pitchers can kind of be those reclamation projects. Maybe the Twins reunite with Joey Gallo, and he as a pitcher, and he puts up crazy numbers, and everyone's clamoring for him to be a part of the bullpen. I don't know. It's a fun question. It's fun to go down that rabbit hole of finding dudes. But I mean, I had guys that stood in the box against Cameron Boozer in 2015 and 2016 said his slider is the hardest to hit in the organization, and he was pitching at low A Cedar Rapids at the time, and it's just those are fun stories.
Amazing. Okay, let's knock out the last few questions, then we'll get on our way. Kyle, Do either of you guys think there's a realistic chance that Emmanuel Rodriguez or Gabriel Gonzalez makes the team out of spring training that are not injury related?
Well, Erod will be injured, so he won't make the team.
God, can you stop?
Gabby Gonzalez, no. I don't. Like, unless there's some significant trades, they're just far down the pecking order to have any chance to break camp with the team.
Kyle, there are so many outfielders on this roster right now. We need to ship out like 4 or 5 before we could even have that conversation. I mean, I do think that's really fun, right? Like peeling back the first layer of the onion of like who's on deck after the underwhelming Major League roster, I think at least is really energizing and fun. Like, never been the greatest Gabby Gonzalez fan. I've always been a big Emmanuel Rodriguez fan, but seeing those guys get battle tested in the majors is going to be, I think, one of the most enjoyable parts of the 2026 season and what I think might be otherwise a little bit of a disaster. Not out of spring though. Okay, question from Nick. Actually, several questions from Nick. He says Andrew Morris and CJ Culpepper. What are the odds?
Oh, okay.
Andrew Morris and CJ Culpepper, ellipses. What are the odds they move to the bullpen and could be weapons for the major league team? And then he says, my prediction this year is that Charlie Soto reclaims top 100 status. And then he also asked about Danny De Andrade. Can he make a jump this year to be a prospect again? Let's start at the beginning. Andrew Morris and CJ Culpepper, because Rye also asked about Andrew Morris and said, when he makes his major league debut, I like that optimism, in 2026, will it be as a starter or as a reliever? So let's talk about Morris first. What say you, Jeremy?
I mean, just based on the amount of starting pitchers that I feel like the Twins have that are good options, I would guess it would be as a reliever. I do think there's a path as a starter if they move, some of the guys that we've talked about a bunch into a different role, like Mick Abel and I can't find who I'm looking for on this list.
Taj Bradley?
And David Festa to me are two guys that could thrive right now in late innings. And so if they make that switch early, then Andrew Morris jumps up from, 9th or 10th on the depth chart to 7th on the depth chart. And then he could be a starter in a spot, right? But it's so hard to know what they do with the other guys. I think it's probably more likely that Morris makes his debut as a relief pitcher, just based on a lot of things. CJ Culpepper is a little bit different. He missed a bunch of time. He had some elbow stuff. Has just a deeper mix of pitches that I think it makes more sense to leave him starting at least, in the season of 2026.
I kind of agree and kind of disagree completely. So I agree with the short-term thing on CJ Culpepper of like he needs innings, deep arsenal, etc. However, he does have a major problem with maintaining velocity through starts. He's also struggled to like totally hone his arsenal in a really effective way with consistency. And so I just wonder if reducing to like 3 pitches from 6 might help a little bit. Morris, I agree with you just in terms of the depth chart. However, he is just such a solid starter candidate. I do feel like he is at the top of the guys at St. Paul who aren't in the mix to start the season with a big league team, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so we have a rotation plus like 2 more guys who are going to have to start in St. Paul pending trades. Morris is next up for me. He holds his velocity well. He, I think, made some progress with some of the breaking pitch stuff in the second half of last season. I know he missed some time too, but we'll be interesting to see both those guys. Morris should definitely debut in 2026. CJ Culpepper should be on the cusp, pending having a healthy season. So that will be interesting.
How differently do you view Travis Adams from Andrew Morris?
I think Andrew Morris is quite a bit better than Travis Adams.
As
Andrew, as far as everything. as far as better arsenal, as far as velocity. Morris has been up to 98 when he lets it eat. Travis Adams is nowhere near that type of velo. And I like Travis Adams decently. But to me, he's never going to surpass being a max 4-inning guy, spot start guy / swingman type role. And that's completely fine. I think Morris can hold down a role in the back end of a major league rotation and give you 160 to 180 innings, 4.5 ERA, and that's going to accrue you plenty of value. Be, an average big league starter. So we'll see. Charlie Soto reclaims his top 100 status this year. Not if you're Theo, who put some clickbait nonsense up that Charlie Soto's his 17th ranked Twins.
Guys, we've been consistent. I've been consistently low on him, and I feel like that is a good place to have him. So
17 is outrageous.
Theo barely had Charlie Soto in the Twins top 100, let alone baseball's top 100.
Yeah, he's not a top 100 prospect. I mean, he can prove it this season, but he's definitely not a top 100 prospect right now. I just need to see him pitch well after being injured and missing the majority of 2025.
I don't even have a problem with you digging him, and like the rationale all makes sense. But the drop from like 10, 11, 12, 13 to 17 feels mean. I'm going to find...
Who do you have at 16, Theo? Like, who do you have just above?
Who did I have?
Like Quentin Young, who's like paid 5 professional games.
Yeah, I had Quentin Young above him.
I like Quentin Young. I'm not gonna fight you on that.
I think I had DeBarge above him, so you can fight me on that. Let's see. Let's look at my list since we need to fill some time.
Soto's ceiling is high, right? I think it's fair to say Quentin Young's ceiling is high.
Mm-hmm.
DeBarge's ceiling doesn't have to be real high because he's like 5'4", but.
Yeah. I put Brandon Whitaker right in front of Charlie Soto.
Yeah, that's hilarious. What's the pitcher? Who's the next pitcher on your list? I was moving up.
Morris.
See, I'd put Soto ahead of Morris.
I mean, for high upside, yes, but also I kind of weigh who's going to have more of an immediate impact on the team, and Morris is definitely that guy. Even if he's back into the rotation, I just like his control better and just what he can do once he reaches the majors. And obviously, there's the possibility he just turns into a pumpkin and we just look at another Travis Adams case here, as you guys were just talking. But, I mean, I've also just seen a lot more Morris in person, so I take some of that into account. Totally. So I have never seen Charlie Soto pitch in person. That's why I have him so low as well. So, yeah, I mean, dig into me all you want, but I guarantee you he'll be in my top 10 at the end of this season.
There we go. There we go. Okay, I dig it. And you know what? This is just a warm up for our top 20 prospects, which is going to be coming up in the next month here, and that's going to be super fun. I'm always really excited for that. Really quick to touch on DeAndrade. Interesting prospects. 21 and repeating high A due to injury. Only played 29 games in 2024. Managed to 121 last year, which is much better. He's been a very consistent bat throughout his minor league career. He's just not an exceptional bat. WRC plus by season, 107, 109, 106, 102. That's nothing to sniff at if you're an above average defensive shortstop, which he is. And so I guess I would reframe the question more so as like, not reclaiming his status. It's more like, can he now do this at AA and stay healthy? Right. That's obviously going to be a significant step up in difficulty. And while his like line doesn't jump off the page at 229, 317, 387, he walks a decent amount. He hits some home runs. He steals. So like he accrues value a little bit in a lot of different ways, as opposed to having kind of a standout offensive tool. So I do think the 99th percentile of DeAndrade is major league utility infield type, which would be great.
Well, and I think the biggest difference between DeAndrade now and 2 years ago is, he's dealt with injuries, but 2 years ago, Brooks Lee was ahead of him in the pecking order.
Yep.
What's happened since then? Culpepper was drafted in the first round. Merrick Houston was drafted in the first round. where it's just like the need for Dandy Andrade to be a great prospect has really
Totally.
Yeah, it's died off. And that's not to say that he can't turn around and do it, because like you mentioned, he's 21 years old. Not a lot of 21-year-olds are tearing up high A and knocking on the door for double A.
Yep.
And so if he does that this year, and I actually wonder when I was putting some teams together if he would just move up to double A. And it's like, man, at 21 years old, he doesn't need to do that.
He will.
And if he's good, like you have to take note of that. So yeah, I think there's a chance that he's probably fallen out of top 30s, but I don't know that he was ever really higher than, even at his highest mid-teens.
Yep.
But to get back in that top 25, I don't think that's at all unreasonable.
Yep. Okay. One last question just for fun from Max. I think we got all of the rest. Which Twins player could become a top 100 prospect by mid-season? I'm going to amend this question slightly. 1, to give you some thinking time, and 2, to set some clear parameters. We are removing anyone who's considered a consensus top 100 prospect now, likes of Walker Jenkins, Manuel Rodriguez, etc. We're also going to remove anyone who's been on a list in the last year, and there are a few more of those guys. So to be super clear, you cannot pick Walker Jenkins, Emmanuel Rodriguez, Kalen Culpepper, Connor Prelip, Eduardo Taiit, Dason Hill, or Charlie Soto. Those are the guys you may not choose. You actually also can't pick Kendry Rojas because he's been on top 100 list too. So sorry. So there's 8 guys who you can't pick. Maybe you can name a couple, Jeremy, like here feels like a likely option, here feels like a dark horse of who you think might
I got you.
onto lists.
I got one for each of those.
Okay.
Merrick Houston.
Okay.
Is the likeliest. The dark horse is Enrique Jimenez.
Ooh, that's
so fun. Those would be, and then my like, can he put it all together?
Yeah.
There's a really small chance, but I would love for one of Quentin Young, who I am a fan of, or Brandon Winokur to like really jump. And I think the likelihood of that is relatively small, but they both possess the capabilities of being like, where'd that guy come from? Because they're both young enough where if you don't see them from September until March, they could look like entirely different humans.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And so that's kind of that's my 4 guys I'll give you.
All of those are really fun. Jimenez is so fun. I mean, get you a catching prospect who has a .431 on base percentage at low A. As a switch hitter, mind you, 172 WRC plus. He was so fun after.
How many home runs?
What did he hit? 6 home runs in 23 games at Fort Myers for the Twins. That was cool. Quentin Young, by the way, hardest hit ball at the MLB Draft Combine in 2025. 115.4 in batting practice. I think that would have been, I think I nerdily looked this up last week. It would have been something like the 35th highest exit velocity in the majors. And he did that as an 18-year-old. So that's fun.
Yeah, I love me some potential there. And with the caveat that it could all go really, really poorly.
Yeah, it definitely could. Okay, I'll give you same deal. One more of a favorite type pick, and then one more of a dark horse. Favorite type pick, Merrick Houston is the obvious choice for sure. I'm gonna go Riley Quick.
You love yourself Riley Quick.
I do like Riley Quick. Lots of reasons to like Riley Quick and think he can move fast. Recovered from Tommy John, elite athlete, former multi-sport star, so hasn't solely focused on baseball for that long. He's been up to 100. Is a really good Riley Quick right up at Limestone Pipeline if you're interested. He's my obvious one. Here's my under the radar, just for fun. Adrian Bajorquez.
Okay.
And now it's harder, I think, for a pitcher to make their way onto a top 100 maybe than a hitter because you're just seeing less of them. But
Mhm.
here's just a re-grounding in him. 6'1", 190. So he's an undersized guy, only 20 years old. But he took a jump at the end of last year such that AJ Angelo, the Cedar Rapids pitching coach, started nicknaming him the Bazooka because all of a sudden he was up to 98 in August. He pitched 23 innings at high A at the end of the season, 3.52 ERA, 2.97 FIP, struck out 11 per 9 and walked just 2.3 per 9. So that's really where he started to put it together. Was the strike throwing was really, really strong. He's really, really good at spinning the baseball. So he has 2 good breaking pitches. So he's just got a lot of starter traits. Definitely a reliever risk. He's little, all the things, injuries, whatever, but he's a really fun arm for 2026. That's what I got.
Okay, I have one question for you.
Yeah.
Which Twins prospect is most likely to be hidden behind the 1 in a top 100 list?
What do you mean?
Like, there's a 1 and there's a 0 and a 0. And which Twins prospect is most likely to stand behind this 1 and nobody sees him?
Oh, Jason Reese.
There we go.
Because we've confirmed that you do in fact have Flat Stanley in the United States and you are pro Christmas, so we can leave it there for this week. Okay, I actually don't think we're going to be back next week with another episode because we have some. Huh?
Tell us why.
Because I'm traveling for work, not just to one place, but 2 places in a week. What a treat for my family and I. But we will be back in a couple of weeks, and we are on the verge of lining up some guests for the latter part of January, early part of February. And then it's going to be spring training. We're going to get into dueling top 20 Twins prospect lists. We'll actually have more news to talk about, all of the things. If there are any emergencies, we'll try and figure out a way to hop on and talk through them. Thank you guys for checking out the show. Hope everyone had good holidays. We will catch you in the next couple of weeks. Take it easy.